Is every ride in Disney World going to be worth your time? Honest answer, no. So let's talk about the rides you should never ride in the most magical place on Earth, here on DFB Guide. Hey everybody, it's AJ for Disney Food Blog. I love Disney World rides as much as any Ultra fan, but I'm also well aware that not every Disney World ride is meant for every person. So today we're going to talk about when you should avoid certain rides, which rides will not mesh with certain groups, and how you can maximize your time in the parks and ride the things you really want to experience without wasting a bunch of time. If you're interested in learning more details about each specific ride across all 4 parks, I highly recommend checking out our Ranking Every Ride series on our YouTube channel next for a more in-depth look into the pros and cons surrounding each thrill, dark, and water ride on property. Alright, so let's dive into some rides you should not ride when you're in Disney World. Surprisingly enough, not everyone wants to feel like a smoothie in a blender. If you're someone who is highly sensitive when it comes to spinning rides or even screen-based rides, there are a handful of Disney World experiences that could wind up being less fun for you and more stomach or headache inducing. These are the rides that will make you sick. Here are a few of the big potential stomach churners around property. Mission Space in Epcot, Star Tours The Adventures Continue in Disney's Hollywood Studios, Mad Tea Party in Magic Kingdom, Avatar Flight of Passage in Disney's Animal Kingdom, Astro Orbiter in Magic Kingdom, Space Mountain in Magic Kingdom, the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror in Hollywood Studios, Remy's Ratatouille Adventure in Epcot, and Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind. Yeah, I listed off quite a few of the popular ones right there, didn't I? I'm not saying these rides are bad by any means. Okay, I'm not a huge fan of Mission Space, but the last time I went on that one, it took everything in me to not toss my cookies. But many of you may not be bothered by the 3D or the spinning whatsoever. However, these rides have all been known to upset some tummies in the past for those with motion sensitivities, so proceed with caution or skip them entirely if you don't want to risk the nausea. If you still want to ride these rides, but you know your stomach's gonna hate you afterwards, make sure to pre-game with some over-the-counter meds like non-drowsy Dramamine. There are also motion sickness patches you can try instead if you want to avoid the medicinal route, or you can pack some ginger candies to suck on after the ride. Now, I will say I did try those little wristbands on Guardians of the Galaxy, and they didn't necessarily take away my nausea, but the Dramamine did. It's also important to know where the park's first aid centers are ahead of time. That way, if the motion sickness gets too intense and you don't have any meds that can help provide you with quick relief, you can still track down meds for purchase inside the park, as well as take a breather in the first aid's air-conditioned building. They will often have those meds, at least in one-person doses, for free. Next on our list is carbon copy rides. I've said it before, I'm going to say it again. If you ride one aerial carousel, you've ridden them all. There are 4 aerial carousels in Disney World. 3 of them reside in Magic Kingdom. Magic Kingdom has Dumbo the Flying Elephant in Fantasyland, Astro Orbiter in Tomorrowland, and the Magic Carpets of Aladdin in Adventureland. While Disney's Animal Kingdom has Triceratops Spin in Dinoland, USA. The wait times for each of these carousels aren't horrendous, unless you're visiting around one of the peak seasons, but you should still expect to wait between 15 and 30 minutes for each. And since they're essentially the same ride, just with different theming, there's a lot of waiting to do just for a hearty dose of deja vu. If I were you, I'd choose one of these rides and skip over the others, but which one you settle on really depends on who's in your group. If you've got younger kids, maybe it's Dumbo. Dumbo's not only a classic, but it has a really neat immersive queue play area where kids can run free on all the slides and activities to pass the time instead of standing still in the physical queue. Seriously, can we have this option available at all the rides? It's a godsend. However, if you have older kids, or if your group is made up of all adults, I'd choose Astro Orbiter instead. This is the highest aerial carousel of the 4, giving you a great vantage point across Magic Kingdom. You even have to take an elevator to reach it, so if you want a more thrilling experience, Tomorrowland can maybe make that happen. As for Magic Carpets of Aladdin and Triceratops Spin, nah, unless you have someone in your group who goes bonkers for all things Agrabah, or you have quite the dino fan in your party, I wouldn't bother with either of these. They're fine as a walk-on, but I wouldn't wait any longer than 10 minutes for either one. Next on our list of rides you should not ride are those with wait times that are just too high. Don't be tricked into waiting into longer lines than necessary. There are some Disney World rides that we love simply because they're easy to get in line for and hop on just a few minutes later, like People Mover in Magic Kingdom or Star Tours or Living with the Land in Epcot. But every now and then, especially around those wildly busy times, the wait times for these rides suddenly skyrocket in the middle of the day. This past Christmas, we were so sad to see people waiting 60 minutes for Grand Fiesta Tour Tour, 90 minutes for Mission Space, and 75 minutes for the Seas with Nemo and Friends in Epcot. They are not going to get that time back. It so doesn't have to be like that. These rides are usually walk-ons and eventually will dip back down to a more reasonable wait by the last half of the day. When it's your first time in Disney World, you may still feel obligated to jump in line because, hey, everyone else is doing it. So this must be the norm. But it isn't. It really, really isn't. So please, please, please keep an eye on wait times for rides even before your Disney World trip begins. You can keep an eye on the average waits from the comfort of your home by downloading the My Disney Experience app ahead of time. That way you can check and see what the normal wait time for each experience typically is and determine whether a ride is seeing abnormally high waits during the time of your visit. Then you'll know when exactly you should be passing up on a ride and holding out for a much shorter line. And then there are those rides that tend to have higher wait times consistently that honestly don't really deserve it. Buzz Lightyear's Space Ranger Spin in Magic Kingdom tends to rack up really high waits, but I think Midway Mania over in Hollywood Studios is a way better shooting gallery ride. You may disagree, but I can't help it. I'm a sucker for breaking plates. Same as Navi River Journey in Animal Kingdom. It's a nice ride with one of the best animatronics out there, but it can rack up wait times just as high as Flight of Passage sometimes. And anytime Alien Swirling Saucers in Hollywood Studios is above a 30-minute wait, just say no. I won't even wait 30 minutes for that one. Maybe not even 20. If you want to ride any of these rides, but you always want to wait to get in their queues when they feel more reasonable, don't forget to check out the ride tip board on your My Disney Experience app. This board will show you not just current wait times listed for the rides, but also forecasted waits. That way you can get a general idea for when certain rides will be at their predicted lowest waits on the day of your visit. Now, how about rides you already know you don't enjoy? There's no escaping the temptations of peer pressure, not even in Disney World. If you've been to Disney before, or you've just been to a theme park in general, then you already know which types of rides you love, which you like, and which you stay away from. So if you know which rides are going to, say, upset your stomach, like we talked about earlier, or which rides are going to give you massive anxiety for the amount of time you're waiting in line for them, that's Rip Ride Rocket at Universal Studios for me, just don't go. No matter how much your group begs you to join them, if you're not feeling it, don't be guilted into the experience. Now, don't take this the wrong way. I'm not saying to never step out of your comfort zone. If you're someone who tends to feel uneasy before rides, but once you're on them, you love them, then take the chance. I'm talking about knowing your boundaries. Here's an example. Let's say you've ridden Big Thunder Mountain Railroad in the past, but the incessant bumps and sharp turns triggered a migraine that you had to work to fight off the rest of the day. When you're back in Magic Kingdom and you really have the opportunity to ride it with a group of friends who very, very much want to go, know to say thanks but no thanks and let them experience the coaster while you kill time somewhere else, like browsing a gift shop or watching the Country Bears Jamboree that's also in Frontierland, and be sure to tell Trixie hi for us. If your friend accidentally gets you a lightning lane, which allows you to bypass the main lines of attractions at a premium price, for a ride you'd rather skip out on, you can always modify those lightning lane reservations without having to cancel them altogether. To modify a lightning lane selection, tap on your already existing reservation, and a little box is going to pop up giving you a list of options to choose from, including Modify Plan. Once you select Modify Plan, you'll be directed to a new screen filled with options. From there, you can either change the time of your reservation if available, swap your reservation for a new one, or remove a member from your group for the lightning lane altogether. Note that this will not work for an individual lightning lane that you purchase outright for that specific lightning lane, so just let your friends know if there's specific rides on that list that you definitely don't want to ride. Now, we've talked about some rides that are too intense for you, but what about for the kids? From our first drop on Tower of Terror to a life-sized Carnosaurus trying to eat us on Dinosaur, Disney's found more ways to freak us out than we would have originally expected. If you're a parent or guardian who's traveling with younger kids, traumatizing the little ones through the power of Disney magic during a family vacation might not be part of your ultimate game plan. And if that's true, then rides like Space Mountain, Tower of Terror, Mission Space, Expedition Everest, Legend of the Forbidden Mountain, and Test Track could be a bit too much for the more skittish kids. Or maybe your kids aren't skittish at all, but they're just not tall enough to experience a certain ride just yet. That can be heartbreaking. If you're planning to visit Disney World with the little ones who don't want to or can't board an attraction, then Ride or Switch is a service that you should use. This is a free service that gives your entire group the opportunity to ride a ride, even if one member of the group needs to sit out with the non-riders during the first go-around. During a Ride or Switch, the majority of your group will wait in line to ride a specific attraction, while one of the adults from your group stays stays outside with the people who can't or won't ride. Before the group gets in line, however, you'll need to see a cast member at the front of the attraction and get the service all set up on your magic bands or your tickets. Once the first group is done waiting in line and experiences the ride, they'll switch with the adult who had to stay behind. This person, along with another party member from the group, so nobody has to ride alone, will then get to ride the attraction without having to wait in the regular line for a second time. One last kid tip before we move on to our next part of this video. Before you get your kids all hyped up for a certain experience, check the height requirements for each ride on the My Disney Experience app or the Disney World website. That way you'll know which rides to get your kids excited for and which one to warn them about ahead of time that they know they won't be able to ride this time around. But there is a super cute little thing that sometimes happens in Disney World, that if you go up to a ride that your kid can't ride because they're not tall enough, then the cast member might give you a fast pass for when they can ride. So they might give you a go to the head of the line pass for when they're tall enough to ride. That's super fun when that happens. Next on our list are rides that just don't mesh with your group. Some rides just don't make sense to wait in line for, depending on who you're traveling with. For example, if you're on an adults-only trip, you don't need to wait 20 or 30 minutes to ride the Barnstormer in Magic Kingdom, unless it triggers this sense of nostalgia and heals your inner child or something like that. That's cool, whatever. But let's say if you have a group that isn't big on rides whatsoever, you don't really have to ride rides to still have a good time in Disney World. There are lots of things you can fill your days with, like shows and shops and restaurants and scavenger hunts, but you can also go to the hotels if you want to. To learn more about what each of the parks has available, as well as which resorts are closest to each location, check out our new 2023 Ultimate Guides playlist on our YouTube channel. That takes an in-depth look into every single park, their offerings, their rides, their shows, their restaurants, and provides some really, really good tips and tricks for your upcoming trip. And you don't need to wait in line to ride rides you can basically find anywhere. Like the aerial carousels we talked about earlier, there are some ride styles that feel extremely similar to one another. Not just throughout the Disney parks, but throughout amusement parks in general. Now, y'all might hate me for a few of these, but I gotta call them out because it's my DFB duty. Mad Tea Party? Sure. It's Alice in Wonderland themed, but other than that, I've ridden this style of ride at a dozen carnivals before. Prince Charming's Regal Carousel in Magic Kingdom? Legendary, absolutely, but it also feels like any other merry-go-round, aside from the Chipper Disney soundtrack playing in the background. And the Tomorrowland Speedway in Magic Kingdom? Think of it like a less thrilling version of a go-kart track. If you absolutely love these types of rides, you do not need to skip them, just because I'm throwing them under the bus today. Besides Tomorrowland Speedway, which can rack up quite the line in the middle of the afternoon, these rides aren't terrible to wait for, so you can still hit them up quickly to be a ride completionist and call it good. But if you're looking for unique experiences and unique experiences alone, these aren't going to scratch that itch. Now, before I wrap up this point, I want to say one more important thing. This advice doesn't count when it comes to duplicate Disney park rides coast to coast. For example, if you ride Space Mountain in Disney World and then you travel to Disneyland for a different trip, don't think you've already ridden Space Mountain just because you did it in Disney World. Those rides might be both set in space, but they have a completely different vibe and you want to ride both on both coasts. The only rides that are exactly blueprint the same in Disney World and Disneyland right now are Rise of the Resistance and Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run. So Big Thunder Mountain, Haunted Mansion, Peter Pan's Flight, they are different in Disneyland and Disney World, so you should ride them both places. Okay, rides that'll make you late for a dining reservation. This is a big issue, especially for DFB. Is it possible for a good ride to still become a sour memory? Absolutely, especially if it ends up costing you money and a dining reservation. So some rides are longer than your typical 2 to 3 minute coaster. Rise of the Resistance at Hollywood Studios is an 18-minute experience after all the pre-shows and the line. Kilimanjaro Safaris at Animal Kingdom is also usually about an 18-minute long ride, although it might be longer if a rhino decides to stand in your way. Spaceship Earth at Epcot is a 16-minute experience, taking you back in time to revisit the evolution of communication and listen to Judi Dench just talk. That's all I need. And the Liberty Square Riverboat in Magic Kingdom, that's 17 minutes. Now, long rides, not bad. Actually, I enjoy all of these rides. But if you're just trying to hit up one more ride before your dining reservation time approaches, these are not the droids you're looking for. Because not only do you have to wait for these, but you have to experience them. After all is said and done, this is going to be an hour to an hour and a half of your day. So you're going to find yourself rushing to get to the restaurant, or worst case scenario, missing your dining reservation altogether. If you're late to your reservation by just a few minutes, not a huge deal. Disney restaurants usually give you a little grace period, about 15 minutes, just in case the unexpected happens. But if you're over 15 minutes past your reservation time, you could lose your table and you could be charged a $10 no-show fee for everyone listed under the reservation. And in the case of prepaid restaurants like Cinderella's Royal Table and Hoop-Dee-Doo Musical Review in Fort Wilderness, you won't simply lose $10. Instead, you're going to forfeit the full price of your meal without being able to enjoy it. So that's a major bummer because that's a few $100. For all restaurants that you don't have to prepay for, you'll still have the option of canceling your dining plans up to 2 hours before your reservation time. Now, this is new. Used to be you had to cancel it 24 hours before. Now it's just 2, so that's great. So if you get to the park and you decide you'd rather not kill a good chunk of time at a sit-down restaurant and would rather focus on hitting up more rides instead, you can always cancel the day of and not be charged $10 per person. But again, it must be 2 hours before your reservation time. If it's 11 a.m. and you try to cancel your meal at Be Our Guest at noon, Disney's not going to cut you slack. However, if you want to keep your dining reservation and ride these longer experiences, just plan to hit up the big ones after you're finished with your meal. Okay, before we get to this next point and reveal my absolute biggest ride pet peeve of all time, let's talk about where you can pick up some super sweet, super awesome Disney ride shirts. On the DFB store website, you can rep your favorite Disney ride with one or a few of our stylish tees and sweatshirts. That's right, we've got merch. Is Peter Pan's Flight in Magic Kingdom the ride you've always got to go on first thing? You can be off to Neverland in the Let's Fly sweatshirt. If you prioritize the wildest ride in the wilderness, then you need a Big Thunder Mountain Railroad tee. Will you ride Spaceship Earth over and over again despite how long that ride is? You should pick up a Grand and Miraculous shirt for your Epcot Dark Ride Marathon. There are plenty more styles where that came from and so many more coming here in 2023, so make sure to check them out after this over on dfbstore.com. Okay, I promised I'd tell you about my biggest ride pet peeve, so here it is. Rides with boring queues. Seriously though, if I'm gonna have to wait in a line for a good amount of time to ride a ride, why make that wait miserable, Disney? Hate to call out Animal Kingdom here since it's like basically my fave park ever, but they're the absolute worst when it comes to their queues sometimes. Are their queues cool when it comes to theming? Yes. Are they cool when it comes to temperatures? Not at all. The Kali River Rapids line, the Kilimanjaro Safaris line, the Expedition Everest line, all have waits that are swelteringly hot. Why in the world did they make all those queue lines outdoors? Just so we can feel one with nature? Is that it? All I can say is thank goodness they learned their lesson with Flight of Passage, otherwise I'd never be able to ride that one. Slinky Dog Dash over in Hollywood Studios is also a miserable queue line. Not only are the wait times forever long for this one, literally just check the wait time for it right now and it's at 120 minutes, but the queue's pretty much all outside and usually stretches beyond the actual queue, so you're basically just standing in the middle of the park waiting forever, being bored and hot. And with that being said, let's talk Genie Plus. Okay, can you believe we almost got through an entire ride video with minimum Genie Plus action? Let's change that real quick. I know I briefly mentioned Genie Plus earlier, but this premium planning tool is a solid way to skip over some of those really awful ride lines. Do I recommend buying Genie Plus just for an Animal Kingdom day? No. You can usually hit up any of the rides I just listed toward the end of the day after 2 p.m. when everyone's park hopping to someplace else for a shorter wait. Still be hot though. In the parks like Hollywood Studios and Magic Kingdom, Genie Plus can help you get past the bulk of the main queue and spit you out into a much shorter version of the line instead. You can purchase Genie Plus as early as midnight on the day of your visit, and your first round of lightning lanes will go live starting at 7 a.m. if you're staying on property as a Disney World Resort guest. Otherwise, lightning lanes are going to be available for you to book starting at the park's opening time. Now keep in mind that not every ride will be available on Genie Plus. More popular rides like Cosmic Rewind, Rise of the Resistance, Flight of Passage, Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, those have individual lightning lanes for purchase at a surge price per person per ride. To learn more about how Genie Plus and individual lightning lanes work, check out our Ultimate Guide to Genie Plus YouTube video, or check out our Everything You Need to Know About Lightning Lanes post on the DFB website. Alright, so not every Disney World ride is built for everybody, but that doesn't mean you can't still enjoy a ride that most people steer clear of. So make sure you do your research. Learn more about each ride and its offerings and build an itinerary based around your must-dos. And keep checking back here for more of the latest news surrounding those rides, ride closures, attractions, refurbishments, all things Disney. Thanks for listening, everyone, and thanks for watching. As always, this is AJ for Disney Food Blog, and we'll see you real soon.